This happened during a Boy Scout campout when I was about 12. My friend, who was supposed to share the tent with me, bailed on the trip at the last minute. That meant I had to pitch the tent and sleep in it alone. Not ideal. The sun was already dipping behind the trees when we returned to camp after a long day of hiking. Everyone started setting up their tents, and I got to work on mine. Doing it solo wasn't easy. Canvas flaps slipping, poles not staying put, but eventually someone noticed me struggling and came over to help. We finally got it standing just as the last light vanished from the sky. Dinner came next. Nothing fancy, just the usual camping grub. Afterward, we all gathered around the fire for the cliched scary stories. The crackling flames, the shifting shadows, and the occasional howl of an owl made the stories land harder than usual. When the tales were done, one by one, everyone shuffled off to their tents. Honestly, I felt a little lucky then. With no one else in my tent, I had more room to stretch out. That small comfort helped me fall asleep pretty fast. But in the dead of night, I woke up to the sound of stomping. Heavy, deliberate footsteps crunching through the underbrush just outside my tent. My first thought was that it was another scout heading off to relieve himself in the woods. But here's the thing. Our scoutmasters had made us pitch our tents far apart from one another for some reason about independence or whatever. My tent wasn't anywhere near the others. And yet, these footsteps, they were close. Very close. They weren't walking away from camp. They were circling my tent. One heavy step after another, deliberately pacing in a slow, even loop around me. At first, I assumed it was just someone messing around, trying to scare me. "Who's out there?" I called out, trying to sound annoyed instead of nervous. No answer. Just more crunching of boots on dry leaves. Then, silence. The footsteps stopped. A few seconds later, I heard them again, but this time trailing off into the woods behind me. Whoever it was had walked off without saying a word. For a second, I considered going after them, but even the thought of unzipping the tent gave me the creeps. I told myself it wasn't worth it and laid back down, pulling the sleeping bag up to my chin. Sleep didn't come easy after that. And then, the footsteps returned. Back again, circling, slowly, methodically. This time, I was furious. I shot upright, unzipped the front of the tent, and stepped outside, ready to yell at whatever jerk thought this was funny. But it wasn't a scout. Standing just a few feet in front of me was a man. A full-grown man, easily 6'5". He looked to be in his mid-40s, gaunt and grimy, his clothes stiff with dirt and something darker. His skin looked pale in the moonlight, and his expression, I'll never forget it. He smiled. Not a friendly smile. It was slow, crooked, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then, without saying a word, he brought one long, dirt-caked finger up to his lips and shushed me. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might explode. Then I ran. I don't even remember making the decision. My legs just moved. I bolted across the camp, screaming, loud, panicked, desperate. My scoutmaster burst out of his tent before I even reached it. I pointed back toward mine, babbling about the man I'd seen. He didn't question me. He and another scoutmaster grabbed one of the hunting rifles we brought for bear protection and sprinted to my tent. The man was gone. But they did find something. Tracks. Big ones.
Footprints circling my tent again and again, pressed deep into the soil. That night, no one slept. The scoutmasters told us to tear down our tents and re-pitch them together, close, real close, side by side, almost touching. We ended the trip the next morning. No one said it aloud, but I think we all felt it. We weren't alone out there. Not really. I haven't been camping since, and I never will again.
Last summer, a few of my buddies and I went camping along the Willamette River. We'd hiked pretty deep into the woods, far enough that the trail had long disappeared behind us. It was perfect, remote, quiet, and totally off the grid. That night, we did all the usual stuff. Cast some lines into the river, blasted music from a Bluetooth speaker, drank way more than we should have, and laughed at just about everything like a bunch of idiots. It was one of those nights where even the dumbest joke felt like the funniest thing in the world. Sometime after midnight, I'd guess maybe around 2 or 3 a.m., we decided to finally call it. I shared a tent with one of the guys, while the other two were in another tent, just a short distance away. We could hear them laughing about something. At first, we laughed along. It sounded contagious. But the laughing didn't stop. It kept going and going. Eventually, we got annoyed and shouted at them to shut the hell up. That's when one of them yelled back, "It's not us!" I sat up instantly. My buzz was still there, but that reply snapped me into a strange, sober kind of clarity. The laughter, it was still going, but now I realized it wasn't either of them. It wasn't either of us, and it didn't even sound familiar. Even drunk, I knew something was off. This wasn't a place where random hikers would be wandering around in the middle of the night. We were way out there. The laughter was getting closer. It wasn't just louder, it was nearer. It carried through the trees in this strange, jagged rhythm. My friend shot upright, eyes wide, pale as the moonlight pouring in through the tent's mesh. From the other tent, one of the guys yelled, "Dude, this is freaking us out." And yeah, we were way past freaked out. The laughter was now so close, it felt like it was circling the perimeter of our camp. I could hear it clearly. Definitely a male voice, maybe in his late 20s or early 30s, and drunk. At least, he sounded drunk. The kind of stumbling, slurred laugh of someone joking around with friends. Except, there was no one else. Just him. There was something wrong about it. Something subtle but deeply wrong. His laugh, it was missing something. Like it didn't have any real joy behind it. Just noise. Hollow and empty, and somehow too perfect. Like an imitation of laughter made by someone who didn't understand what laughing felt like. And then, the laughter stopped. Just like that. No fade out, no awkward stuttering. Just silence, like someone cut a wire. We waited. Our campsite was dead still. The fire had long since gone out, and the only light was the pale blue cast of the moon overhead. We couldn't hear a single footstep, and that was the worst part. The woods around us were packed with twigs, dry leaves, and underbrush. It was impossible to move quietly through it, but we hadn't heard him step once. Not a single crack, crunch, or rustle. And now, nothing. No footsteps, no movement. Just us, staring at each other through the darkness, listening to our own shallow breaths and pounding hearts. Then, scratch. A soft, dragging noise against the nylon of the tent. Something was brushing against it. Not violently, slowly,
deliberately. And then we saw it, the outline of a hand, pressed firmly against the tent wall, lit just enough by the moonlight to see the fingers splay out and stay there. We both screamed. No hesitation, no plan, just raw panic. We burst out of the tent, shoving through the flap, nearly tripping over our own feet as we ran. The other two guys did the same, racing behind us without needing an explanation. Branches whipped our faces, roots nearly took us down. We didn't stop. We had no idea where we were going, just away. After about 5 minutes of blind sprinting, we somehow found the car. I collapsed against the hood and vomited from the run, hands shaking. I don't even remember getting into the driver's seat. I just remember the keys in the ignition, the engine growling awake, headlights spilling across the trees like safety lights in a nightmare. I don't condone drinking and driving, not even close. But in that moment, I honestly believed we had no choice. Something was out there with us, and it wasn't playing a prank. To this day, I have no idea who or what that man was. But whatever it was, it wanted us to hear it laugh. After college, I decided to go on a solo backpacking trip through the Canadian wilderness, a few weeks alone in nature, just me and the wild. I needed the silence, the space, the distance. No phones, no schedules, just solitude. And I got it. To put it in perspective, I was way off the grid. The nearest town was a 3-hour bus ride away, if you could even call it a town. During the entire 7 days I was out there, I saw only one other human being. He was in a canoe, paddling along the far side of a lake, so distant he might as well have been a shadow. Other than that, nothing. No voices, no footsteps, just wind through the trees and the sound of water lapping against the shore. Back then, digital cameras weren't really a thing, at least not for everyday people. So I brought a few disposable film cameras with me, just to document the scenery. I took lots of photos, the kind you'd expect: rolling hills, towering pines, still lakes under gray skies, some shots of my camp, a few awkward selfies with my arms stretched out, trying to capture the moment. A week later, I came back home, tired, sunburned, and a little proud of myself. I dropped the cameras off at a local drugstore for developing. A few days later, I picked up the envelopes, thick with prints. I went home, kicked back, and started flipping through the photos. At first, it was exactly what I remembered: scenic, peaceful, trees arching over trails, campfire pits, reflections in the water. I smiled to myself. I'd actually done it, gone off the map and come back with proof. But then I hit the halfway mark on the first set of photos, and I stopped. 2 photographs, back to back, both taken inside my tent, both showing me asleep in my sleeping bag. The camera angle was low, crouched maybe, just enough light from the moon or my camp lantern to make out my face, turned slightly to the side, breathing quietly in sleep. In one photo, my arm was outside the sleeping bag. In the other, it was tucked in. I felt a sickening chill creep down my back. I stared at those pictures for what felt like hours, my mind grasping at explanations that didn't exist. I had never set a timer on the camera. It didn't even have that feature. I was alone the entire time. I knew I was alone, didn't I? My hands were trembling by the time I set the photos down. I remember the way the light in the room suddenly felt too dim, the walls too close. I don't remember if I slept that night. In fact, I'm not sure I've slept the same ever since. I haven't been camping since, can't even bring myself to think about it. That sense of freedom I once craved, the quiet, The solitude now feels like exposure, vulnerability. At night, I sleep with my bedroom door open and my curtains shut tight. It doesn't make much sense, but it makes me feel a little safer. Like maybe I'll hear someone coming, even if I never saw whoever took those pictures. But that feeling, that paranoid hum in the back of my mind, it never really left. That constant whisper of uncertainty, the sense that maybe, just maybe, I was never alone out there, and that whoever or whatever was with me in that tent never really went away.
My boyfriend and I decided to head out to the gorge for some quiet time, just the two of us. We'd camped there before, but always with friends. This was the first time we'd ever gone alone. We pulled off at the trailhead and started unloading our gear for the mile-long hike into the forest. That's when we noticed them. Two guys. They emerged from the trail, grimy, expressionless, and off in a way that made my skin crawl. They said nothing, just stared at us for a long beat before turning back to their rusty old Volkswagen camper van. I tried to shake it off, told myself we were overthinking it. Weirdos show up in the woods all the time, right? Still, the unease clung to me as we hiked in. I'd camped in this area a handful of times before, so I knew the layout well. Once we reached the clearing, I scouted the different sites, trying to pick the one that felt safest. I noticed a small camp set up further up the hill, just barely visible through the trees. We chose a spot a little further down, out of direct sight, but not out of earshot. From up the hill, I heard someone yelling, arguing with someone, though I couldn't make out the words. It was almost dark by the time we got our tent and tarps set up. I decided to gather some firewood before the light was completely gone. And that's when he appeared, out of nowhere. A man, mid-30s, maybe older, approached us with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes and asked if we wanted to buy a bundle of firewood for $5. I blinked in disbelief. We were literally surrounded by trees, free wood everywhere. I laughed awkwardly, trying to brush him off. "We're in the woods," I said. "I think we'll be okay." He didn't laugh, just stared. Then he said, "You won't find much. We've cleared most of it out the past few weeks." "We?" I raised an eyebrow. "How long have you been camping up here?" "Almost a month," he said, no hesitation. "A month? Living in the woods? Alone?" he claimed. Except I knew I'd just heard him shouting at someone earlier. I called him on it, asked who he'd been yelling at and why he'd just said "we." He stammered, fumbled. Yeah, some dudes I know. They're camped out on the other side of the river. Just friends, I guess." "Right." Then he started rambling. Told us he was from Pennsylvania, said he took a bus to Lexington and had been living in the woods behind some place near where I worked. I knew the place. There were homeless camps, immigrants, addicts. I'd seen them come and go from that stretch of forest almost daily.
So now he was here, off-grid, living on snakes, bugs, and whatever else he could scrounge, selling firewood to whoever wandered close enough. He said we were the first people he'd seen in weeks. But none of it made sense. His stories contradicted each other, overlapping in strange ways. There was no way he was alone. You could see it in his eyes. He wasn't telling us the whole story. He led us up to his camp and proudly showed it off, and it was clear this wasn't a setup for one person. There was too much gear, multiple sleeping spots, piles of supplies. Someone else was staying with him, or had been. He told us he liked camping high up where he could see everything. I remember the way he said it, soft, almost reverent. From his spot, he had a perfect view of our camp.
By now, the sun had dipped behind the ridgeline. The forest was wrapped in shadows. He helped us get the fire going, uninvited but insistent. I kept glancing at my boyfriend, trying to give him the look, the "we need to talk" look. Eventually, I managed to get the guy to head back up the hill. As soon as he disappeared into the darkness, I leaned over to my boyfriend and whispered, "There is no way I'm sleeping here with that guy watching us." He tried to calm me down, said we should stay at least one night, that he didn't seem dangerous. But all I could think was, we didn't have a weapon, not even a dog, just a tent, a top, and a bad feeling that wouldn't go away. We stayed, but we didn't sleep. All night long, we heard twigs snapping around our top, branches rustling, movement, slow, careful, circling us. He was out there, I knew it, just watching, waiting. I finally turned to my boyfriend and said, "We're packing up, quietly, now." We moved as silently as we could, stuffing our gear into bags, slipping on shoes. We left the top up. Tearing it down would be too loud. He'd know we were trying to leave. I slung my pack over my shoulder, just about to take the first step. And from the darkness about us, a voice. "Weavin' so soon?" His voice cracked through the night, light and mocking. He was right there, watching us, closer than I thought. We didn't answer. We just ran. No trail, no flashlight, just instinct and fear. As we stumbled down the hill, his voice rang out again, clear, calm, and chilling. "Y'all come back now, all right?" I don't think I've ever run faster in my life. We didn't stop until we reached the car. I locked the doors, hands shaking, eyes scanning the tree line like he might suddenly appear from the dark. I didn't sleep that night, not even when we got home. I called the rangers the next morning and told them everything, where he was, what he said, what we saw. I don't know what happened to him, whether they found him or if he moved deeper into the woods. All I know is, he got our top, and he knows how to wait.